Hi everyone, so today I'll be showing you how to make chocolate tart. And this recipe will be split into two parts. One, where we'll make the tart itself, and two, where we'll make the chocolate filling inside. For the tart crust, you need an egg, some butter, some powdered sugar, some almond flour, some cake flour, and a pinch of salt. So the first step is to sift the cake flour, the almond flour, and the salt together in this bowl. We'll be softening the butter up. So now that the butter is kind of soft and kind of white, we'll be adding the flour mix into it. I'll be adding it 2 to 3 times slowly. And now we'll be just mixing the egg by itself. And now we'll be pouring this in. Now you can pour the egg in all at once. And when it gets really hot, you need a whisk to mix it. We can change to a spatula. And when it seems mixed enough, we'll just be adding the powdered sugar in. Now, when you mix it using a spatula, try to kind of cut the dough. And I'll be putting it into cling wrap and I'll be refrigerating for around 2 hours or until it gets into a solid. So now that the tart dough is kind of solid, I'll be spreading it into the mold. First of all, you need to make your thickness of your dough very consistent so that it's always consistent throughout the mold. So I just kind of placed the tart dough on the mold, but I just have to kind of shape it because I've placed it on really badly. You can use a flat-based cup to kind of stomp it out and make it kind of flat. So here's my completed tart, and now I'll be putting in Tart Weights and putting it into the oven. So first I'll be spreading aluminum foil all over it. Now I know Tart Weights aren't the easiest things to find, so what I usually do is I use coins that are left over and I just put them in instead of the Tart Weights. Now this works because I'm putting an aluminum foil over it, so none of the dirt from the coins will get on the tart, so it is really hygienic as well. Now that you put the Tart Weights in, we'll be preheating the oven to 160 degrees and we'll be putting it in the oven for 35 minutes. So now I'll be working on the ganache inside. I'll be using a range of chocolates today, but I usually recommend using only milk chocolate. I'll also be using honey, some whipping cream, and also some butter. The first step is to chop these chocolates into smaller pieces. So now in a pot, I'll be putting the heavy cream in, and I'll also be putting the honey in as well. And we'll be turning the heat on medium. Now, when some smoke starts to come out of the mixture, that is when you know you can stop the heat. So now we'll be emulsifying the chocolate by pouring this mixture onto the chocolate and mixing it. Now, when you're mixing it, make sure that all the chocolate is melted and that there's no lumps or bits of chocolate left. And when the temperature starts to drop, we can add in the butter. And now we're done with the ganache, so we'll leave it to the side until the tart is done. And now it looks golden brown, and I'll be adding in the ganache into the tart. I'm going to be mixing it a bit because it feels a bit harder and kind of more solid-like now that I've been leaving it in the oven for quite a while. So now that the chocolate filling is inside the tart, I'll be letting it cool out here for a while and then be putting it into the fridge for around 2 hours. So it's been a few hours and I refrigerated my tart, and now it looks something like this. But now I'll be putting it back into the fridge while we make the glaçage. So for the glaçage, you need a couple of things. 1, some water. 2, some granulated sugar. 3, some cocoa powder. 4, some whipping cream or heavy cream. And 5, some water with some gelatin. Now I'm using 2 sheets of gelatin, as that is around 4 grams. And first of all, what we'll do is we'll soak it in water. Next, we'll be taking out a small or medium bowl and we'll be mixing the granulated sugar and the cocoa powder together. Next, we'll be putting the water and the heavy cream together and heating it in a pan. So we'll first be putting in the water and the whipping cream, and we'll put the heat up on 3 or medium heat. Now we'll be stirring it and heating it until it boils. When it starts to boil, there'll be some bubbles on the surface, and there'll also be some smoke, and that's when you know you're ready to move on to the next step. Now the next step is to turn off the heat and move it somewhere that's not heated. Now after this, we'll be adding the cocoa powder and sugar mixture. After it's a bit mixed, we'll be putting it back on the heat. When this mixture starts to boil, there'll also be some bubbles like this, and that's when you know you're ready. So now that it's boiled, we'll be putting it out of the heat, and I'll be adding in the gelatin. The gelatin should kind of feel like jelly, and we'll be putting this in so that it solidifies more. And now after some mixing, we'll be straining it. So now that the glaçage is strained, we'll be putting it onto a tart. So just like that, the tart is filled, and now we'll be putting it into our refrigerator, and we'll be refrigerating it for around 1 hour.